Good evening. Welcome back to our third and final segment with political commentator and critically acclaimed comedian Evan Sayet. Nice to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Evan, I promised a discussion of the closing of the American mind when we left our second segment, but I want to get back a little bit to Sarah Palin. You know, the left just hates her so much, and it's a fascinating phenomena. So let's get back to that, but with this question. Do you think she may run for president, and would it be a smart thing to do or a mistake in terms of Republican strength?
First of all, I think as far as her own personal strength goes, it's very iffy. I mean, here she is, she's a kingmaker. And if she runs in the primaries and loses, or even if she gets the nomination and loses in the general election, I think that takes her down a peg. She's no longer the winner, the kingmaker, this icon, and I don't know if that's a smart thing for her to do.
Yeah.
If she were to run in the primaries, I mean, my guys, I respect her. I admire her. I'm not sure that she's my favorite of the candidates who are out there. Now, I've lost Mike Pence. Mike Pence was my guy that I wanted first and foremost. John Thune also is not going.
Now, just a sec. Now, in one of your articles, Evan, you said, this is very typical. I've had a million of these conversations. I was glad you mentioned this. You're speaking to one particular individual, and she says, I hate Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
And you say, why? And she says, because she's stupid. And then you made a very good point. Whether she's stupid or not, playing the devil's advocate here, why would you hate a stupid person?
That's right.
Even there in itself, because I don't think she's stupid. But why hate? It's obviously not because she is stupid.
You don't hate stupid. Look, we think a lot of people on the left are stupid. We think Katie Couric is stupid. But I don't hate her for it. And Prager makes this point. I mean, the right thinks the left is stupid. The left thinks the right is evil. Yeah. And the reason being, and then we can segue into the closing of the American mind because the point is made there as well. But before we do, look, a thinking person like me, I didn't know who Sarah Palin was. Like a lot of people didn't know who Sarah Palin was when John McCain picked her. And by the way, it was a genius pick, and I'll explain why if you remind me in a moment. But so what I do, whether I do it literally, consciously, physically, or whether it's in my mind, is I weigh the information. So I know nothing about this woman. But now I know that she's married to the same man that she's been since they were sweethearts together. That's not definitive. That's a little piece of information. Good. She keeps her vows. Oh, she didn't abort her baby. She's willing to sacrifice for life. Oh, she joined the PTA. That's a big deal to me. Let me just go on for a moment. All right. She joined the PTA. She did such a good job at the PTA. The people who knew her best, in that little town, Wasilla, who knew her best, said, we want you to be our mayor. That's impressive to me. All right. She did such a good job as mayor that the mayors of all the other cities in Alaska, big and small, said, we want you to be the president of the mayor's organization. That's impressive to me.
Yeah.
She did such a good job. They made her the head of the biggest industry in the nation's biggest state. That's impressive to me. They said, you did such a good job. We want you to be governor. That's impressive to me. Then she had an 80% approval rating. Okay, now on the other side, what is there? Okay, she had a bad interview with Katie Couric. I'm not going to say that's nothing. She had a bad interview with Charlie. Okay, I'm not going to say that's. And then since then, she's proved her. So obviously, to say she's stupid is ridiculous. She's overwhelmingly a good, decent, smart, accomplished woman who deserves our respect.
Yeah, and not in the politically correct culture. And I apologize. I attributed something to you in the last segment. I guess you weren't the one that wrote it. I read so many of your pieces, I got a little bit confused for a minute. But I have read, and
people reading my piece get confused. So
but I have read and I do agree that there's somewhere where liberal men are very threatened and feel emasculated by her beauty and are simultaneously angry that their wives aren't as beautiful as Sarah Palin is, and that's where the resentment comes from.
It may be, but I really prefer not to get into the deep psychological aspects of it. I think more than anything, she debunks the liberal notion that you can't succeed in America if you're a woman. You can't. The only way to be happy in America is if you abort your child so you can have more me time. I just think that she, by being successful, by being a hard worker, she showed that the schools don't need more money; they need more parents joining the PTA. She showed that you don't need to be a Harvard graduate to be a good mayor and then a good governor.
Okay, Evan.
Yes.
She wins the Republican nomination and she runs against Barack Obama for the president. Who would you vote for?
Oh, please! I cannot imagine voting for a Democrat ever in my life.
Have you ever voted for a Democrat?
Of course, right up until. I'll tell you, there was one moment. I used to make this speech to my daughter every 4 years because the Republicans kept losing during this time when she was young, which on election night I'd say, honey, we worked hard for our guy, but now the other man won and he's president and he's going to be our president because that's the way it is in America. A speech that a Democrat would never give today.
Yeah.
But that there were seeds of my being a Republican early on, and that was one of them. And then I put her to bed election night 2000, and they had called the election for George Bush at this point when we turned off the TV, and I made that speech. And she said, what are you talking about, Dad? I wanted Bush to win. And I went, what? It was just so inconceivable. I'd never had anybody in my life who didn't hate the Republicans. It was inconceivable. And then at that moment, I kind of said, okay, I know that she's a good kid. She wasn't really a kid any longer. And therefore, there was an inkling of, oh, you could be a good person and a Democrat, because I saw it right there in my house.
Well, let's go back a little bit then for a minute and talk.
I'm saying, no Republican, but go ahead.
But let me ask this. In terms of Barack Obama, one of the worst presidents, bad president?
I believe he's the first truly, completely anti-American president that this nation has ever had. I believe that anti-Americanism is endemic to the left. And the reason for it is very simple.
You think he's more anti-American than Jimmy Carter?
Well, first of all, he's had the good fortune of being able to stand on Jimmy Carter's shoulders. I mean, Jimmy Carter first had to lose Iran, all right? Obama came into power. Iran was already a Muslim state. He'd already gotten, so he started with a head start over Carter. But yeah, I think that Carter, very similar, but Carter was still steeped in the last of the great generations. He still had those influences, whereas Barack Obama was steeped in the 60s radical hate America always leftism. Let me explain, if I may, very briefly, why America hatred is endemic to the left.
And I will allow you to do that, but I think within the context of you being a 913 Republican, I think is best when you really realized that the left hates America.
Okay. What really surprised me was not 9/11. It's what I metaphorically call 9/12. It was the days, the weeks, the months, and now the years after 9/11, and my liberal friends' response to the attacks. The notion that we deserved it, the notion that it was the chickens coming home to roost, and that somehow, if only we were nicer to the terrorists, then they wouldn't murder us again. This was insane. All right? It was the first time that I really had to think, how do these people think this way? I mean, you're good people. Why are you supporting evil? And I have an expression now. I say, the first time you think is the last time you're a Democrat. And 9/13 was the first time that I thought.
And you saw that there really was a glee that America had been hit at that time.
Well, there's a hatred from the left for America that has to be, and it's very simple. Why? If you are so open-minded that no culture is better or worse than any other, no religion, no nation is better or worse than any other, then how do you explain America's success? Look, Barack Obama was asked point blank, do you believe in American exceptionalism? And he said, in essence, no, I don't. Right? He said, yeah, I do, just as I'm sure the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greek believe in Greek exceptionalism. In other words, he doesn't believe in America's constitutional exceptionalism. Basically, patriotism in his eyes is an act of bigotry. It's the accident that he was born here. If he had been born in Greece, then he would think Greece was exceptional. But here's the question. This is so important. If America isn't exceptional, then how does he explain America's unprecedented prosperity? How do you explain America's unprecedented productivity, creativity, ingenuity? There's only two possibilities. Either there's something about our culture that brings about these successes, but if our culture is nothing special, then these successes are unjust. Why should we be successful? And because it's the greatest success in human history, America must be the greatest injustice in human history. When Barack Obama does not recognize, when the multiculturalist does not recognize America's exceptionalism, then he does think we're exceptional. We're exceptionally unjust. He has no other choice.
Thank you, Evan. We got a couple minutes left. Very brief answers because I want
to get. Yes, I'm single. Yes, women can call. Yes, they can.
Okay, for if you're single, for the women that are interested in you, how can they get in contact with you?
Let me tell you why I'm single. It's Mary Matlin's taken. But
do you think that you've made a mistake with women, and that's why you're single?
A mistake in what way?
In any relationship?
Yeah, I should have been blonder. probably taller, little less. No, what kind of mistake did I make?
Okay, so it's okay,
I'm a victim.
Evan, let me ask this before we depart. Obviously, this evening, and you've shown in your career that you're an intellectual and sophisticated man, but you use humor. And I've been interested in laughter and in comedy my whole life and the meaning of it. What do you think it was in you that turned to comedy and turned to making people smile? What is it in you that was attracted to that realm?
Well, I grew up in a house where we told jokes. But the jokes had points to them always. They were life lessons. This is not the greatest example, but it's one that pops into my head. In my house, if somebody died, I mean, I'm talking about if Grandpa died. I'm talking about if Uncle Danny died. You never said so and so died. So and so is on the roof. Is what Uncle Danny is on the roof. Oh no! It comes from a joke about this guy who loves his cat, never leaves his cat. 20 years he will not leave the cat alone. Finally, after 20 years, he's got to get away. He's got to go on vacation. So he has his brother watch the cat. He says, "I'm going to call you every night. I want you to take care of this cat." He calls the first night and says, "How's my cat doing?" The brother says, "The cat died." I can't believe that. And not only is that terrible, but how could you have broken it to me like that? You know how much I care about the cat. Couldn't you have told it? Couldn't you have broken it to me gently? Couldn't you have told me the cat went outside? The cat saw another cat on the roof. The cat decided to try to help the other cat on the roof. The cat got too close to the edge of the roof. He fell off the roof. We rushed him to the hospital, and then he died. And the brother says, "Well, you know what? Okay, I apologize. But by the way, how's Mom doing?" The brother says, "Mom's on the roof." So in my house, jokes were they were life lessons to them. They were just integral. And I remember the first joke I ever made, although I don't know if it's appropriate for this. I was 6 years old. It's kind of gross. I don't know. You'll edit it out if it's not appropriate.
All right, go ahead.
All right. I was 6 years old, and for whatever reason, my mother thought I had eaten lead paint. My mother and so she made me go into the bathroom and stick my finger down my throat. And 6 years old, I came out and said, "Mom, if I do this anymore, I'm going to throw up." Not bad for a 6-year-old. That's better than Rosie O'Donnell's whole act.
Okay, Evan.
Yes.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Yes.
In terms of
both.
What do you see as the future with Obama in power? It seems that the left is controlling the boundaries of our discourse and debate. Our hands are tied behind our back on so many levels that we can't even label the enemy. Tell us why you're pessimistic, and also one note of hope, perhaps, before we go.
Well, the one note of hope is that we have finally done the one thing that has to be done for us to have any chance, which is to come to recognize the left is at war with us. There is no armored car filled with gold, melted down and shaped to look like Barack Obama that we can deliver to the Democrat that will not receive a spit in the eye in return. When these people are willing to use Gabriella Giffords being shot and not take a moment to mourn, not take a moment of introspection, but to have a meeting and decide how can we score points against the other side, these are people who are at war.
Yeah, and you didn't see the left protest Itamar at all, the tragedy that happened there.
And these are people who literally define beauty as urinating on Jesus Christ. The piss Christ is beautiful. What makes that beautiful? The fact that so when we came to recognize...
And yet they're outraged about the cartoons against...
You know what? No, they're not.
No, what I'm saying, they're outraged. They're outraged that the cartoons have been made.
Right.
The left is on the side of censoring.
I don't believe they're outraged in the slightest. It's that they calculate everything by saying, what can we say? How can we help evil and attack good?
Right.
Let's pretend
they're not
to be
really
outraged,
but they're pretending that they're. But they're pretending that they're
yeah,
outraged.
When was the last time they were outraged about Bill Maher using the C word to describe a woman? Right. All right. Where are those who care about misogyny? It's all everything the left does. Environmentalism, civil rights is a fig leaf for the leftist movement.
Evan, before we go, short-term, long-term future plans. What do you have on the agenda?
Oh, gee whiz. We're working on a major tour. It's a little premature to talk about where and when and how, but we're talking about a major. We're going to start off with a 10-city tour. Okay. Pull back and see how we did in different cities, and then go out, and I hope for the rest of my life. I'd love to be on the road.
Now, we've also offered the women writing in, knowing about this interview, that they'd like a candlelight dinner with you. Where can they contact you, the one that wins?
Well, first of all, I can't do a candlelight dinner because that's going to contribute to global warming. But
thank you very much,
Evan. Find me. I'm around.
They'll find you. Okay, they'll find you, right?
Yep.
Evan, it was a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining this edition of Front Page Close-Up. We'll see you again soon.